Dear friends, our work was not in vain. We have been working constructively and in a business-like manner, typical of the Russian-African cooperation, as well as in the atmosphere of mutual understanding, trust, and sincere friendship. It has been a meaningful and interested exchange of opinion of cooperation between Russia and African countries. Moreover, during the plenary sessions, as well as bilateral meetings, round tables, and panel sessions, we have discussed relevant global problems, international economy, politics, food and energy security, sustainable and stable development, cultural and humanitarian cooperation. We have outlined our further work. We have outlined our plans to strengthen foreign policy coordination, increase trade and investment, as well as industrial cooperation between Russia and African countries. We have spoken about training human resources for Africa's national economies. We have drafted and agreed upon the main declaration of the Russia-Africa Summit, as well as a number of topical declarations on preventing an arms race in outer space, on cooperation in international information security, on strengthening cooperation in fighting terrorism. Moreover, the plan of action of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum for 2023-2026 is ready for adoption. Unless any of my esteemed colleagues disagree, let us consider these documents adopted. Are there any objections? Thank you. In general, we assess the outcome of the work at the summit as very positive. We believe that these results make a solid foundation for further developing the Russian-African partnership in the interests of our country, our people's well-being. We have some more events coming on our schedule. Thank you for your attention.
Уважаемые дамы и господа.
Ladies and gentlemen, President of the Russian Federation, Vladímir Putin. The Chairperson of the African Union, President of the Union of Comoros, Azali Assoumani.
Уважаемые дамы и
Ladies and gentlemen, the outcome documents adopted at the plenary sessions are the second Russia-Africa Summit Declaration, as well as declarations on the prevention of arms race in outer space, on cooperation in the sphere of ensuring international information security, on strengthening cooperation in the fight against terrorism, 2023-2026 Russia-Africa Partnership Forum Action Plan. Following the negotiations, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, and Director of Peace and Security Division of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Siraj Fegesa Shurefa, are signing the Memorandum of Understanding between the government of the Russian Federation and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development on the basic principles of relations and cooperation.
Министр иностранных
Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, and the President of the Commission of the Economic Community of Central African States, Gilberto da Piedade Verissimo, are signing the Memorandum of Understanding between the government of the Russian Federation and the Economic Community of Central African States of the basic principles of relations and cooperation.
Церемония.
This concludes the ceremony. It is followed by the statement for the mass media by President of the Russian Federation, Vladímir Putin, and Chairperson of the African Union, President of the Union of Comoros, Azali Assoumani. Distinguished President Azali Assoumani, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my satisfaction with the fact that the main events of the official program of the second Russia-Africa Summit were held in a constructive, friendly atmosphere and were very resultative. This applies to the Economic and Humanitarian Forum and the sessions of the summit itself, as well as to the special meeting with the heads of African regional organizations. Tonight, we'll discuss with the African stakeholder states the situation around Ukraine. A range of bilateral contacts with African leaders took place. Our meetings with all heads of state present in St. Petersburg are planned. Naturally, we are happy that the summit has gathered delegations of an overwhelming majority of the countries of the continent, heads of all leading integrations of Africa. The representatives of African states have shown political will. They demonstrated their independence and real interest in development of cooperation with our country. We appreciate that, and we're convinced that there is a successful future for Russian-African relations based on traditions of time-tested friendship, as well as history of multifaceted and fruitful cooperation that dates back to the early period of African countries building their statehood. Most importantly, that summit has confirmed one more time that there is firm commitment both by Russia and Africa to further development and finding new forms and new spheres of mutually beneficial partnership. In this context, it's very telling that the outcome of our work is the adoption of an impressive package of joint documents. First and foremost, I would like to highlight the St. Petersburg Declaration endorsed by the leaders. It enshrines strategic dimensions for development of cooperation between Russia and African states for the long term. The commitment of all of our states to shaping a just and democratic multipolar world order has been confirmed, a world order based on universal principles of international law and the UN Charter. The declaration reflects common commitment to countering neocolonialism, use of illegitimate sanctions, attempts to undermine traditional moral values. The Sochi Agreement has been confirmed that Russian-African summits will be held once every 3 years. In between the summits between Russia and Africa, there will be a mechanism of dialogue partnership put in place. There will be regular political consultations between ministries of foreign affairs of Russia, African states, and the leadership of the African Union. It is also planned to establish a new permanent Russian-African mechanism to coordinate on the matters of security, including such relevant topics as fight against terrorism and extremism, food security, information technology, non-placement of weapons in outer space, and climate change. It is very telling that many constructive ideas and useful practical notions were expressed by our African friends during today's meetings. Naturally, we'll take them into consideration. Many spheres of Russian-African cooperation have resulted in separate declarations which spell out our harmonized approaches and benchmarks for further joint action. Specific tasks on galvanizing Russian-African partnership in economic and humanitarian spheres, as well as in general about translation into life, the decisions of St. Petersburg Summit are set out in a large-scale 2026 action plan. Its goal is to quantitatively and qualitatively improve bilateral trade and its structure, while also talking about consistently transitioning to financial settlements and commercial deals to national currencies, including ruble, to eliminate trade barriers. Also by coupling integration processes in Eurasian Economic Union and African Union and its free trade zone, to increase export to Africa of the industrial products of Russia, well regarded in Africa, including machines, cars, equipment, chemicals, and fertilizers. Our country will continue to provide our African friends with grains, both commercially as free of charge. We'll facilitate in developing energy sector to satisfy the growing needs of the African economies in hydrocarbon fuel as well as power generating capacity. By that, we mean not only traditional sources of energy, but also innovation sources of energy produced by Russian Rosatom. The plan of action, as well as a number of other interagency and commercial documents signed on the margins of the summit, stipulate deeper industrial cooperation, doing joint projects in information and communication sphere. In particular, our companies are open to transferring to our African friends applied technologies in public governance, in banking, and other sectors of economy. The summit reached an agreement about the importance of galvanizing cultural, scientific, educational, sports, tourism, youth, and other humanitarian exchanges. Here as well, Russia has a lot to offer to our African friends and colleagues. We'll continue cooperation in the sphere of education and national capacity building. The number of African students studying in Russia, as well as the number of allocated scholarships, will be increased. By joint effort, African countries will create branches of Russian leading institutions and schools, including with instruction in Russian language. The relevant initiatives were reviewed during the meetings that took place. Naturally, we also plan to help African partners to strengthen their national healthcare systems, to improve their resilience, technical capacity, effectiveness, and efficiency in their fight against epidemics. For that, we are launching a large-scale aid program to African countries to fight communicable diseases till 2026, totaling 1.2 billion rubles. Our work as part of the summit will continue, but even now I would like to use this opportunity to thank all of our African colleagues who accepted our invitation to travel to St. Petersburg. And, well, they traveled here. Once again, I'd like to highlight that Russia is sincerely trying to build truly strategic, multifaceted partnership with Africa, and we see the same sentiment to act together, hand in hand, reciprocated by our African friends. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have made a great presentation. I can sincerely thank you. Thank you, dear brother. I should also like to thank all the authorities of the Russian Federation, and I thank the Russian people for this hospitality, for the warm welcome. I would like to mention the great ambience that has been put into place in order to make sure this summit is a success. And I would like to offer my congratulations to you, Mr. President, because all the decisions that you have taken, you've made, you're not going to regret them, because we have managed to secure great success, not just for the President of the Russian Federation, who has invited us, but also it is a success for African countries, because if Russia is the winner, then everyone is the winner. Starting from yesterday's evening, we've been engaged in discussions. We've spoken and have had conversations today. We have offered our thanks. We have spoken about the long-standing relations between our countries and Russia. They've been there for decades, and we know that it is during the most difficult times when you know who your true friends are. And Russia stood with us during the most difficult times, during the times of slavery or during the times of apartheid. Russia has always been helping us. It was one of the first countries to provide its help with fighting against colonialism, apartheid, and slavery. So for many centuries, we've had good relations. And I think these relations are going to develop this or that way. But this is the time to give a new impetus to our relations and to strive forward. We've also spoken about numerous problems that have been mentioned by President Putin. What can I say? We take note that Russia stands willing to help us with the training of professionals and labor force, because human capital is of great import to us. Almost all African countries have been sending their students to study in Russia, and all of these people, graduates, have come back working in the private sector and in the government sector. We know that Russia has the necessary potential here, and we've got to make full use of it. We've spoken about that before. We will continue to make progress. We support this cooperation, yes. The first summit took place back in 2019, but then COVID struck and we had to slow down the implementation. During this summit, we have mentioned that we need to set up a mechanism that is going to help us secure greater results. We've also tried to take stock on our achievements and on the gaps. In Africa, there are a lot of countries that are willing to host the next summit, and the Comoros is one of those countries. We've spoken about all the themes, all the topics, from energy to infrastructure. We have also demonstrated that Africa has a potential of its own. The only thing left to do is to tap this potential, to use this capital for our mutual benefit. We have to use these capacities to create added value. It's true, we've gained political independence, but so far it's been confined to the political sphere, and we need to keep moving. We've got the capital, now we export our raw materials, and then these raw materials, after having been processed, get back to our countries, and we have to pay more for them. And we know that Russia can help us with addressing this issue. Russia has expressed its willingness in that regard, and Russia is already doing that. And I refer to the processes of industrialization, to agriculture, to energy. So I reiterate, I think our success is assured, and we are satisfied with the outcomes of these meetings. We live in a unified world, an interconnected world. So what we advocate is Africa being part of the organizations that make the decisions. We live in a multipolar world. Russia is going to invest in Africa, but that does not mean that others are not going to do so as well. We have put in place an enabling environment for investment. We're not going to have one sole partner. We will have multiple partners. If we have 2 or 3 partners, it's even better because they will attract more new partners. Thank you, Mr. President. Russia, I would like to say thank you to Russia as well. We are setting up a free trade area in Africa. We believe this is a very good model which will help us make headway and develop further. And as chairperson of the AU, I can do what I can in order to accelerate the establishment of the FTA. And I'm sure that with Russia's support, with Russia's partnership, we will be able to implement this project and achieve tangible results. We have also broached the subject of grains and supplies of grains. The Russian president has said that he's willing to provide assistance to us, even free of charge. Yes, there are attempts to unblock the current situation. We'll have a look at how to go about that, how to lighten the burden. Yes, we know about the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, which has an impact upon the global economy. We've been to Kiev and had talks there. We also had meetings with the president of Russia, and we'll find a solution. The Russian president has demonstrated his willingness to help us with the supplies of grains. It's important, but maybe that's not enough. What we need is a ceasefire. Because war is always unpredictable. The longer it lasts, the more unpredictable it becomes. President Putin has shown us he is ready to engage in dialogue and search for solutions, and we need to convince the other party right now, and I hope that we will be able to do that. We have seen once again that it is possible. We act as a mediator, and we'll talk to both parties, and I do hope that we'll achieve concrete, positive results. Thank you, Mr. President.